There's a kind of power that no one talks about anymore. A silent one. One that doesn't need words. One that doesn't ask for attention, but demands respect the moment it enters a room. It doesn't shout. It doesn't explain. It doesn't beg to be understood. It watches. It absorbs. And it waits. For the right time to strike, not with violence, but with precision, restraint, and unshakable control. This power, this unspoken dominance, is not born in the gym. It is not built through manipulation or schemes. It's carved in silence, forged in solitude, sharpened by self-mastery. Nietzsche whispered a truth that most people are too distracted to hear. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But today, we ask a different question. What if your how was silence itself? Chapter 1. The loudest one in the room is always the weakest. A barking dog doesn't bite. A truly powerful man doesn't talk. He listens. He learns. He calculates. The world has trained you to react. Insulted? React. Doubted? Defend. Disrespected? Shout. But the Stoic, the true master, does not react. He endures. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. But what if you chose not to react at all? That is where the secret begins. To outsmart anyone without saying a word, you must master the terrain most people never even step into, your inner world. Chapter 2. The Inner Fortress. In a society where everyone is performing, silence is subversive. In a room full of clowns, the man who refuses to dance terrifies them. Why? Because he isn't playing their game. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, soldier, philosopher, understood this. He wrote not to impress the world, but to train his mind in solitude. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the first principle of silent dominance. Don't let their chaos become your chaos. People expect you to flinch. They want you to explain. They feed off your need for validation. Refuse it. That's how you break them, silently. That's how you outsmart them, by not even stepping onto their battlefield. Chapter 3. The Art of Not Flinching. Watch a wolf. It doesn't bark at every squirrel in the woods. It only moves when it's time to kill. That's what real presence is, strategic stillness. Nietzsche warned against reactive minds. He believed most men were slaves to their instincts, not masters of them. He said, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." Let them misunderstand you. Let them underestimate you. In fact, you want that. Because while they're wasting energy trying to decode your silence, you're conserving yours, watching, gathering, waiting. The Stoics trained themselves not to react to every emotion. Seneca said, "A wise man is content with himself." And contentment, in a world obsessed with performance, is rebellion. Chapter 4. The Strategy of Controlled Detachment. To outsmart without words is to walk the battlefield of life without drawing your sword. You don't defend your name. You don't chase arguments. You don't explain your moves. You let fools exhaust themselves in noise while you build in stillness. Nietzsche admired the Übermensch, the man who transcends the masses by mastering himself. In that, he and the Stoics agree. The Stoic, like the Übermensch, does not need applause to feel worthy. He does not seek revenge. for that would mean the other person controls his peace. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. You only lose power when you reveal your wounds, when you speak too soon, when you explain too much, when you give them access to your emotions. So stop. Stop giving away your power for free. Start watching. Start owning the silence. The invisible war." Friedrich Nietzsche said, "Battle not with monsters, lest you become a monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." The true war is never out there. It's not in the boardroom, not in your rival's eyes, not even in the battlefield of life. The true war is within, the invisible war between who you are and who you pretend to be. You want to outsmart others? Then understand this first. Your enemy is not the man in front of you. Your enemy is your reaction to him. Seneca said it like a blade. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. And what does adversity do? It reveals the fault lines in your mind. It pulls at your ego. It whispers to your pride. Most people collapse there, but not us. Chapter 5. Killing the Ego. Every word you speak in pride, you pay for in silence later. The ego wants to win arguments. The ego wants to be seen. But the Stoic, the master, sees the ego for what it is. A beggar in royal robes, a dog barking at its reflection. Epictetus warned, "If someone does wrong, it is because they do not know what is right. So do not hate them, but teach yourself to not be disturbed by them." The moment you need to prove yourself, you've already lost. Because in that moment, you gave someone else the power to define you. You gave up your sovereignty. And the man who outsmarts everyone is a man who cannot be owned. Chapter 6. Strategic Withdrawal. Power isn't always in pushing forward. Sometimes power is in pulling away. The ancient Stoics practiced premeditation malorum, imagining the worst that could happen, so they would never be shocked by it. They knew when to speak, and more importantly, they knew when to walk away. The lion does not chase flies. Likewise, you don't need to prove your strength to anyone who's too weak to understand it. Sometimes, walking away is not defeat, it is design. A wise man withdraws not because he's scared, but because he's too dangerous to be provoked by noise. In that silence, his presence becomes more terrifying than any insult he could have shouted. Chapter 7. Becoming the Unreadable Man. The moment they understand you, they can control you. Predictability is a cage. The Stoic cultivates silence like a weapon. He becomes unreadable, not to confuse, but to protect. He holds his emotions not because he's numb, but because he's powerful. He does not give people a map to his mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Do not say it, become it." The unreadable man doesn't boast about what he's doing. He simply moves in silence and lets his results appear like thunder. The less they know, the less they can use. Chapter 8.
Silence as dominance. A man walks into a room. He doesn't smile. He doesn't speak, but everyone notices. Why? Because in a world where everyone is trying to be seen, the man who is content being invisible becomes the most visible of all. Your silence forces others to confront themselves. It makes them uncomfortable, and discomfort creates power. Because people start revealing themselves in your presence while knowing nothing about you. Seneca reminded us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And it's true. Your silence allows their imagination to run wild. They fill the gaps with fear, assumptions, insecurity. That is how you outsmart them. You give them nothing, and they give you everything.
The psychology of influence. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "The best weapon against an enemy is another enemy." But what if you were the enemy of no one? What if your mere presence was the weapon? No blade, no word, no defense. Just presence. In today's world, people scream to be heard. They post, they argue, they beg for recognition. They weaponize their words to prove their worth. But a Stoic knows, influence is not projection. Influence is gravity. And gravity doesn't shout. It pulls, without effort, without asking for permission. We do not force people to listen. We become so still, so centered, that they lean in. Because true influence isn't manipulation, it's the effect of self-possession. Seneca knew this. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. But he also meant, be the one who improves others without even trying. You don't need to lecture. You don't need to argue. When you walk in alignment, others feel it. And that is influence, far beyond what any clever word could ever achieve. Chapter 9. The Shadow of Detachment. When you are attached to outcomes, they control you. You want them to respect you. You want them to notice your silence. You want them to feel small in your presence. That desire makes you weak. Because now you're no longer free. Now your peace depends on them. And the moment you need something from someone, you've lost the high ground. The Stoics taught radical detachment, not from love, not from life, but from the illusion of control. And when it happens, we do not flinch. We do not get bitter. Because detachment means, I do not need you to act right for me to remain right. They scream. We do not echo it. They accuse. We do not answer them. They lie. We do not correct them. Not because we are passive, but because we are beyond the reach of pettiness. That is power. Chapter 10. Non-reaction as warfare. Understand this. The battle begins when you react. Your anger is their bait. Your explanation is their victory. Your outburst is their strategy fulfilled. But what if you reacted with stillness? Nietzsche saw non-reaction not as apathy, but as elevation. He wrote, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." The Stoic doesn't avoid confrontation. He disarms it without participation. Imagine the power. Someone insults you. Everyone watches, waiting for your reply. You look at them and say nothing. That silence isn't emptiness, it's warfare. It says, I choose not to let you dictate the terms of my peace. It doesn't just confuse them, It crushes them. Because when you don't react, they have nothing left to attack. They end up exposed, screaming at a ghost.
Chapter 11. The Inner Mirror. You cannot outsmart others until you have outsmarted yourself. Look inside. Where are you still desperate to be seen? Where do you crave control? Where do you still let emotion guide your actions? Nietzsche said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." But the Stoic doesn't let that chaos command him. He studies it. He locks eyes with it in the dark. He becomes its master. This is why journaling, as Marcus Aurelius did, is not weakness, it is warfare. Each line you write in silence is a strike against the undisciplined self. And when you master your own darkness, you become untouchable in the presence of others. They can try to provoke you, but they're fighting a mirror. Chapter 12. Command without speaking. The deepest leaders don't command by barking orders. They move with such certainty that others want to follow. You don't need to convince. You don't need to control. You just need to become a man of such terrifying self-control that the world orbits around your stillness. Nietzsche called this the man who says yes to life. Not the complainer, not the victim, but the one who says, "Let it come. I will remain." That's who we are training to become. And as the Stoics knew, this level of internal command can't be bought. It can't be faked. It must be earned, hour by hour, breath by breath, pain by pain. The price of solitude. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." To outsmart others without saying a word, you must first walk alone. Let that sink in. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a preparation. Most people avoid being alone because they fear what they'll find within themselves. But a Stoic seeks solitude like a warrior seeks the forest, because that's where he sharpens the blade of his mind. Seneca said, "We suffer from too much busyness, not too much solitude." In solitude, you come face to face with your impulses. You watch them, you dissect them, you burn them. It's in solitude that you become dangerous, because you no longer rely on the noise to validate your existence. You become complete in the silence, and that makes you unstoppable. Chapter 13. The Quiet Revolution. We live in a time of spectacle, where people perform not to express, but to be applauded. But the Stoic, the one who is truly free, initiates a quiet revolution. He lives like a shadow. He builds like a ghost. He arrives like fate. No announcements, no explanations, just results. As Marcus Aurelius said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Let others shout. Let them make noise. You build in silence, brick by brick, one breath at a time. This is the revolution, not to change the world's mind, but to live so fully in command of your own that nothing outside can shake it. And from that place, you rule without needing a throne.
Chapter 14. How to make people obsess over you. It's ironic. When you chase people, they run. When you talk too much, they ignore you. But when you say nothing, when you move with purpose, when you withdraw your attention like a monk withdrawing his final breath, they start to obsess. because mystery is magnetic, because your silence forces them to wonder, what is he thinking? What does he know that I don't? Nietzsche understood this dark charisma. Invisible threads are the strongest ties. Your silence becomes that invisible thread. It binds others, not through manipulation, but through their own curiosity. You become the question they can't answer, the puzzle they can't solve, the presence they can't forget. And all you had to do was say nothing. Chapter 15, the final discipline. There is one discipline that separates the Stoic from the slave, one mastery that separates the sovereign from the puppet. Emotional indifference to external validation. To be insulted and not need revenge. To be misunderstood and not need to explain. To be admired and not get drunk on the applause. This is where the battle is won. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Can that sentence cut you like a sword? Can you bear to be misunderstood and remain still? Can you carry your silence through mockery, failure, doubt? Most can't. But we are not most. We're becoming rare. And the rarest man is the one who can sit still while the world burns and feel nothing but the flame within. Chapter 16. The ritual of withdrawing from the world. Every warrior needs a temple. Every philosopher needs a cave. Every king needs a place to remember who he is. This is why we practice withdrawal. Not escapism, but intentional solitude. Not retreat, but recalibration. You do not outsmart the world by engaging it constantly. You outsmart it by stepping away often enough to see it for what it truly is. Noise, illusion, distraction. The Stoic detaches not because he is weak, but because he is preparing to return with more power than the world can handle. Epictetus said, "Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems." So step away, journal, walk, fast, breathe, withdraw and return, sharper, stronger, quieter.
The mountain mind. There comes a point when you become like a mountain. You no longer descend into the valley of petty conflicts. You no longer chase echoes. You simply stand. And in that stillness, you become immovable. This is the mind of the Stoic, calm under pressure, silent under chaos, detached from praise, indifferent to insult. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." That's the mountain mind. While others crumble under noise, you remain untouched, not because you're numb, but because you're centered. You have seen the world's chaos, and you chose not to mirror it. You chose stillness. And in that choice, you became more than a man. You became a force. Chapter 17. The language of stillness. Most people believe language is made of words, but the Stoic knows better. Silence is a language, and when spoken with intention, it is louder than 1,000 speeches. Your stillness says, "I am not bothered. I am not threatened. I am not like you." You want to outsmart your enemy? Make him talk more. Make him guess more.
make him need your reaction, and give him none. Nietzsche said, "He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." Let that echo for a moment. Even hate is a form of attention. And so we learn, even in hate, we must be selective. Your silence is not ignorance. It is higher awareness. You are fluent in a language most will never understand, the language of restraint. And when you speak it, you don't need to win. You have already won. Chapter 18. The power of not needing anyone. Now comes the darkest, deepest truth of all. Need is weakness. The moment you need them to understand you, the moment you need their respect, the moment you need them to see your worth, you hand them your leash. The Stoic outsmarts the world by needing nothing from it. No applause, no recognition, no permission. Seneca wrote, "A great mind becomes a great fortune." When you become a fortress within yourself, you walk among men like a god among shadows. Not to dominate, but because you no longer ask them for anything, and that makes you impossible to control. You can't be outplayed if you don't even play. You observe, you move, you disappear. This isn't loneliness, it's liberty.
Chapter 19. Nietzsche's final lesson. Nietzsche gave us a vision, not of a perfect man, but of the man who stands above the herd, the Übermensch, not superior in muscle, but in mind. He said, the higher man is distinguished from the lower by his fearlessness and his readiness to challenge fate. That's the final lesson. We do not become powerful by overpowering. We become powerful by transcending. The Stoic, the man of silence, is above reaction, above vanity, above validation. He walks into a room and changes its temperature. He speaks with posture. He dominates with calm. His silence is a storm others cannot endure. He does not win arguments. He renders them unnecessary. He does not destroy his enemies. He forces them to destroy themselves, trying to figure him out. He does not bend to life. He bends life by his stillness. Chapter 20. The Silent Crown. Now we arrive, not at the end, but the beginning of a new code of conduct, one that belongs not to the masses, but to those of us willing to suffer for control, to bleed for clarity, to break ourselves down and rebuild with steel. And now we understand why. Because through discipline, we become sovereign. We need no defense. We need no noise. Our silence is our crown. And the world, the loud, trembling world, will never know what to do with it. But we do. So wear it. Final meditation. From now on, we do not argue. We do not flinch. We do not explain. We watch. We move with purpose. We choose detachment. We choose solitude. We choose the invisible crown of silence. We do not become the loudest in the room. We become the room itself. So,
To outsmart anyone, remember, say less, feel less, need less, watch more, build more, endure more, and become more. In silence, we rise. In silence, we rule.